If you've been scrolling through endless workstation options and still feel stuck, this review should clear that up. I've spent the last week comparing a handful of mid-range workstations, watching YouTubers, digging through forum threads, and even chatting with a couple of small business owners who just upgraded their rigs. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When you sit down at a desk and ask yourself, do I really need a full-blown workstation, or will a high-end laptop suffice? The answer usually lands somewhere in the middle. You want a machine that can handle 3D rendering, video editing, or heavy CAD workloads without breaking the bank, but you also don't want to waste money on features you'll never touch. The Lenovo ThinkStation P3 Gen 2 tries to hit that sweet spot. A compact tower with a modern Intel Core Ultra 7, enough RAM for multitasking, and a fast SSD for quick file access. It's positioned as an affordable entry into the workstation world, and the real question is whether the trade-offs it makes actually line up with what you need day to day. First off, let's talk about the processor. The Core Ultra 7265 is part of Intel's newer lineup that blends high core counts with AI-accelerated instructions. In practice, that means you'll notice a smoother experience when you're running software that leans on IBIST upscaling or inference, like some of the newer video editors that offer automatic scene detection. For traditional CAD or 3D rendering packages, the extra cores translate into shorter render queues when you're working on medium-sized assemblies. It's not a Xeon, so you won't get the same level of ECC memory support, but for most freelance designers or small engineering teams, the performance gain over a standard i5 is noticeable without the premium price tag. Memory is where the ThinkStation starts to show its pragmatic design. 16 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM is the baseline, and while that's enough to run Photoshop, Illustrator, and a couple of background applications without swapping, it does set a ceiling for very large projects. If you routinely deal with massive point cloud datasets or render 8K video, you'll likely feel the pinch after a few hours. The good news is the tower's design makes upgrading RAM relatively painless. There are 2 DMM slots, and you can pop in another 16 gigabyte stick without taking the whole machine apart. That upgrade path is a practical way to future-proof the box if you anticipate growth. Storage is another area where the P3 shows its modern intent. A 512 gigabytes NVMe SSD gives you lightning-fast boot times and rapid loading of software libraries. In my testing, opening a 2 gigabytes After Effects project took under 10 seconds, and moving large video clips across the drive felt instantaneous. The downside: 512 gigabytes can fill up quickly if you keep raw footage or large 3D assets locally. The chassis does support an additional 2.5-inch drive, so tacking on a larger SATA SSD or even a traditional HDD for archive files is straightforward, but you'll need to budget extra for that storage if you're a heavy user. One of the often overlooked aspects of a workstation is the graphics solution. The ThinkStation P3 Gen 2 ships with an integrated Intel Arc GPU that leverages the same AI-accelerated cores as the CPU. For many design workflows like vector illustration, basic 3D modeling, or video preview, it's surprisingly competent. However, when you push into real-time rendering or GPU-intensive simulations, you'll quickly outgrow it. The tower's PCIe slot is standard size, meaning you can install a dedicated NVIDIA RTX or AMD Radeon card later on, but that again adds cost. If you know your workload will stay within the realm of moderate GPU demand, the integrated solution saves you the hassle of picking a separate card and dealing with additional power requirements. Speaking of power, the P3's 400 WPSU is modest but adequate for the stock configuration. It keeps the whole system relatively quiet, and the fan curve is tuned so that under typical office loads you barely hear it. When the CPU ramps up to full load during a render, the fans spin up a bit, but the noise stays below conversational levels. If you add a high-end graphics card later, you'll need to consider a larger PSU, which is a hidden trade-off many first-time workstation buyers overlook. Now, who should actually consider buying this machine? If you're a freelance graphic designer who dabbles in motion graphics, an architect working on mid-size BM models, or a small video production team that needs a reliable edit station, the ThinkStation P3 offers a solid foundation. Its compact footprint fits nicely under a desk or on a small office shelf, And the inclusion of a DVD writer is a small but handy feature for anyone who still needs to archive footage on disk. The Windows 11 Pro license also adds business-grade security features, which can be a plus for clients who demand a certain level of compliance. On the flip side, if your daily grind involves massive 3D renders that take hours on a render farm, or you're a data scientist running large GPU-accelerated models, you'll likely feel constrained by the integrated graphics and the base RAM. Likewise, anyone who expects a workstation